History has a rule: great victories are immortalized instantly. So why did Europe wait an entire century to build its monuments? And why do those monuments hide erased inscriptions, coded symbols, and secrets no historian dares to touch? Something about the early 19th century does not add up. In the story of human civilization, one tradition repeats again and again: great victories are memorialized immediately. After World War II, Europe filled with monuments, plaques, arches, and memorial walls, all rising within just a few years. It's a natural human urge to freeze a triumph in stone while memories are fresh. But for some reason, this rule simply collapses when we look at the early 19th century. The conflict known in Russia as the Patriotic War and in Germany as the Battle of the Nations stands wrapped in an unusual silence. The victors waited not years, but decades, even an entire century, before building their monuments. This bizarre delay isn't just a historical oddity. It's a genuine anomaly that casts a shadow over the official narrative. It feels as if the real story was allowed to fade, replaced later by monuments carrying a carefully reconstructed version of events. Our journey today will take us across Europe as we examine these strange, belated memorials. They are not simply tributes, they are riddles carved in stone, filled with missing inscriptions, cryptic symbols, and double meanings. Each one is a clue to a past that may have been rewritten. And our investigation begins in Moscow, at a monument every visitor recognizes, a triumphal arch whose most important detail was intentionally erased. In central Moscow stands a grand structure commonly known as the Triumphal Arch. According to the familiar narrative we learn in school, architect Joseph Bove designed it to honor Russia's victory over Napoleon in 1812. Its foundation was laid in 1814, yet construction stretched for 20 long years, strange timing for a monument supposedly built in a wave of patriotic fervor. On the surface, everything looks reasonable. A great victory deserves a grand monument. It even displays a plaque that states its purpose. But if we dig deeper, the clean story crumbles rapidly. The earliest illustrations and documents don't call it a triumphal arch at all. Instead, they use a simple, generic title, the Triumphal Gates. This mundane name removes any unique patriotic identity and places it in the same category as countless other triumphal gates across Europe and beyond. Its architectural style, classical columns, winged figures, balanced proportions, carries nothing particularly Russian. You could imagine the same gate standing in Rome, Paris, or even North Africa. It looks like a standard design that could honor any victory in any country. This is the first inconsistency that makes us question whether the arch was originally meant to commemorate the defeat of Napoleon at all. But the most disturbing discovery lies in the inscription that should clarify everything. It no longer exists. Not faded. Not vandalized. Destroyed deliberately, asterisk asterisk. In 1912, as Russia prepared to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Borodino, officials ordered a restoration. That restoration erased the last remnants of the original inscription entirely. Photographs taken after the renovation show a perfectly smooth, empty surface, a silent void where the dedication should have been. Think about the absurdity. On the eve of the greatest patriotic anniversary, the main monument isn't proudly restored. Instead, its defining feature, the text explaining what it commemorates, is wiped clean. Who could authorize that? And why would anyone do it? What was originally written there that needed to be removed just before a national celebration? This act of erasure, disguised as preservation, transforms the monument into a silent witness. Officially, it honors the victory of 1812. But in reality, it now resembles a generic triumphal gate, lacking any explicit connection to Napoleon's defeat. Perhaps this is simply a strange one-off incident. To find out, we travel west to Germany, where another memorial to the same events awaits, and it contains mysteries of its own. In Bavaria, overlooking the Danube River, stands the Hall of Liberation, an enormous cylindrical structure nearly 60 meters tall, capped with a massive dome. It was completed in 1863, exactly 50 years after the wars against Napoleon. The architect behind it was the renowned Leo von Klenz, a figure we will encounter again, someone whose fingerprints appear on several of these puzzling monuments. The Hall of Liberation is breathtaking from the outside. 18 colossal buttresses form a ring, each supporting a statue representing one of the ancient Germanic tribes. It looks like a national pantheon, a monumental celebration of unity and resilience. Officially, it honors those who died in the Wars of Liberation in 1813 and 1814. But as soon as you step closer and begin reading the inscriptions, the silence is unmistakable. Inside, embedded into the marble floor, we find the message. May they never forget what made the struggle for liberation necessary and by what means it was won. A powerful sentiment, but stunningly vague. No enemy is named. No dates. No battles. No heroes. What liberation? From whom? Why? The stone offers no answers. Above the entrance, another inscription honors the German liberators, addressed by King Ludwig I. Yet even here, the wording is so broad it could apply to nearly any era, any conflict, any struggle for freedom. Imagine a World War II memorial with an inscription that simply reads, "To the Heroes of Freedom." No mention of Hitler, Nazism, or the year 1945. Impossible. A monument is supposed to be a historical document. But this one avoids history altogether. It feels intentionally universal, as if its creators wanted it to be adaptable, able to represent any liberation from any enemy. Why avoid specifics in a monument supposedly commemorating a very specific victory? Why hide the context? The pattern of vagueness is becoming unmistakable. But where time itself becomes suspicious is when we return to Russia to examine the most famous structure linked to the 1812 war. The Cathedral of Christ the Savior. Officially, it was envisioned as a grand temple celebrating Russia's victory against Napoleon. The idea surfaced in 1813, immediately after the war. Under normal circumstances, such a monument would be built quickly, fueled by national pride. Instead, its construction turned into a century-long saga. The first design approved by Alexander I was dismissed as too complicated and too expensive. New competitions followed. Revised designs were proposed. Bureaucracy blocked progress. Funding was inconsistent. The site chosen in 1839 was consecrated but spent decades in limbo. By the mid-19th century, over 40 years after the war, the project remained largely an empty pit. Only in the 1860s did construction finally gain momentum, largely due to the persistence of Metropolitan Filaret. But even with renewed effort, the project dragged on for decades more. Political crises, design challenges, and economic issues slowed everything. Even once the building appeared complete, its consecration didn't take place until 1883, nearly 70 years after the war ended. And photographs from the early 20th century show that exterior work was still unfinished even in 1907, almost a century after the events the cathedral was meant to memorialize. Why could the empire that repelled Napoleon so quickly not build its main memorial for nearly 100 years? Was it incompetence? Financial issues? Or something deeper, discomfort with the narrative itself? These extreme delays add yet another layer of mystery to the monuments of the 1812 era. We see erased inscriptions, vague messages, strange delays, patterns that hint at hidden motives. But monument creators also left behind coded symbols, visual hints that speak louder than text. And some of these symbols completely undermine the official version of events. In Smolensk, we find a monument where symbolism carries a double meaning. On top of a rugged cliff, two powerful eagles protect their nest. Officially, the cliff represents Russia, and the eagles symbolize the armies of Generals Bagration and Barclay de Tolly defending their homeland. A patriotic interpretation, at least at first glance. But in ancient European mythology, this scene has a completely different meaning. Stealing an eagle's egg from a high cliff was the ultimate test of a young warrior's courage, a symbol of conquest, not defense. In that interpretation, the monument celebrates the boldness of the invader who captured the eagle's nest, not the defenders who protected it. Was this symbolic duality accidental? Or was the sculptor leaving a secret message, readable only by those who understood the older myth? Another startling clue appears in Tsarskoye Selo. In 1817, cast iron gates were installed commemorating the victory over Napoleon. They carry an inscription: "To my dear comrades in arms." Heartwarming, until you notice the other side. The inscription is repeated in French, the language of the supposed enemy. Imagine a U.S. World War II memorial with, "To my beloved brothers in arms," written in English, and then again in German. Unthinkable. Such a gesture erases the boundary between friend and foe. It doesn't sound like a triumphant message from a victor. It sounds like a farewell from someone acknowledging a shared experience, perhaps shared goals, with the other side. Is this a monument to victory, or a monument marking the end of a joint mission? The contradiction is carved in iron. And now we reach the most extraordinary of all monuments, where all the mysteries merge into one. The Volkerschlachtdenkmal, the monument to the Battle of the Nations, in Leipzig. Completed in 1913, on the 100th anniversary of the battle, it stands 91 meters tall. It is massive, intimidating, and stylistically unlike anything else in Europe. The battle it commemorates was not a national victory for the Germans. It was Germans fighting other Germans, Saxons, Bavarians, and others under Napoleon against Prussians and Austrians on the Allied side. Why would a nation create its largest monument to celebrate a conflict that was essentially a civil war? This is the first puzzle. The second is the architecture itself. It looks nothing like European neoclassicism. No arches, no Greek columns, no traditional heroic statues. Instead, its design resembles ancient temples of the Maya or Khmer empires, or a colossal Mesopotamian ziggurat. Huge stone blocks. Monolithic walls. Gigantic, silent guardian figures. The atmosphere is ritualistic, almost supernatural. Inside the crypt are 8 stone warriors resembling ancient idols. Above them, in the Hall of Fame, for enormous 9-meter figures represent virtues like bravery and faith, yet their expressions show no triumph, only solemnity, as if mourning some forgotten truth. The dome features carvings of 324 winged horsemen ascending to the heavens. Who are they? Angels? Valkyries? Messengers from a forgotten mythology? This structure does not feel like a war memorial. It feels like a temple, an altar, dedicated to some ancient cult of sacrifice and rebirth. And the most incredible fact: this was built in 1913, before modern construction equipment capable of easily manipulating such massive stones. This monument is the final and most overwhelming piece of the puzzle. It challenges everything we think we know about the early 19th century. So let's gather the threads. We saw monuments built decades, sometimes a century, late. We saw inscriptions erased. We saw messages so vague they conceal more than they reveal. We saw symbols that reverse the meaning of official narratives. We saw a victory monument written in the enemy's language. And finally, we saw a colossal temple in Leipzig that seems to belong to another civilization entirely. Put together, these monuments do not celebrate victory as we know it. They whisper a different story. A story that is missing from the textbooks. Is it possible that the wars of the early 19th century were not what we are told? That the goals, forces, or even the participants were far different than the official version? That after the conflict, a new historical narrative was written, and the monuments were remodeled, delayed, or reinterpreted to fit the new script? We are not claiming final answers. We are simply presenting the evidence. And this evidence is undeniable. These monuments are not merely architectural wonders. They are encrypted archives. Silent witnesses waiting for someone to decode their messages. What truly happened in the early 1800s? One thing is certain. Our understanding of history is just beginning.